To have the privilege to see that, to get real, actionable advice and insights from them on what it takes to get an artist to where they want to be, it's just, like I said, man, I'm a fan. And I think that's really important for artists to have. Yeah, with a little bit of networking, you could find plenty of people in your city that make music. But to be real, man, I had to fall back. I kept getting frustrated because nobody was ever on my level. And I'm not talking about talent. That was actually one of the most frustrating parts. These were super talented artists. Some of them were way more talented than me, but nobody was ever on my level when it came to the work. Nobody wanted to do all the other things that it takes to be successful. And it's not like I was just making this up. I was only relaying the information that I was getting from the people like the ones on this list. But my point in saying all of this is it could be a lonely road sometimes, you know? And that's why I say it's so important to find resources like these, because collectively they all kind of feel like my own personal counsel, if that makes sense. What's good and welcome to Indie Leverage. There hasn't been a better time in history than right now to become a successful and thriving independent artist. The barrier to entry is basically non-existent, and with all the free resources that we have to educate ourselves, we have more leverage than ever before. But with all these guides and tools and hacks and books and podcasts, YouTube channels, you name it, it's real easy to get lost in the sauce real fast. So in this video, we'll be going over my list of the top 10 podcasts and YouTube channels that every artist should be tuned into. And stick around because you know I saved the best for last. So let's not waste any time and go straight in onto number 10 on the list. Number 10 is none other than Adam Ivy, whose YouTube channel easily fits into this list. Named as one of the 150 great marketers to follow in 2015, Adam Ivy is a creative marketing strategist who has almost 300,000 artists subscribed to his channel. One of the things that I appreciate the most about Adam is his unfiltered advice. The last thing that we need as artists are people sugarcoating things for us, when in reality, the industry is not sweet, man. And it's definitely not for the weak-minded. Not only does he help keep you updated on any valuable tools or new features from social platforms, but he also goes in depth on how to consistently build an engaged following on social media. He also has a ton of videos that help with strategizing a release plan for your music, and you may be wondering why he only landed as number 10 on my list. Well, one, somebody had to be there, but one thing that I will say, in my opinion, a lot of his content seems to be focused more so on your mindset and the basic principles that every artist should follow. Obviously, this is super important, but with every channel or podcast on the list, you gotta understand that there's different levels to it. Some people obviously have a target demographic that's geared more towards artists in the beginning stages of the career. Some of them you could tell are more focused on the artists that already have a basic understanding on how the industry works. And depending on where you're at, these same topics could be that same reason why he'd be number 1 on your list. But to this day, I continue to watch every single video that he releases, even if it's covering something that I already put into practice myself, like keeping your ego in check. Because 1, it never hurts to have a reminder, and 2, you never know if someone's going to deliver a message to you that resonates on a deeper level than it ever had when you heard it before. Plus, a lot of it I feel like is about timing. If I'm watching a video he has about avoiding burnout, I'd probably find a deeper connection to it if I was experiencing burnout in that moment. But moving on to number 9, we have Jesse Cannon's YouTube channel, Musformation, where he takes a more analytical approach when teaching music marketing and community building with his viewers. Musformation made it into the top 10 because he has, in my opinion, some of the best content you can find on building a community of loyal fans. He was also the first person to explain the waterfall release strategy to me in a way that actually made sense. Even though I'd already heard of the waterfall release strategy before watching his channel and I had a basic understanding of it, Jesse's breakdown of it in a video really made it click for me and made it make sense in a practical way. Like I said earlier, it's not always about the information per se. What's just as important is how the information is communicated and how well you're able to understand it, because none of it really matters if you don't put it into practice. Number 8 on the list, I think might be one of the longest running podcasts dedicated to helping independent artists. If you've never listened to the DIY Musician podcast, then you're in luck, because they have a ton of episodes that are ready for you to binge. It's presented by one of the biggest online music distributors, CD Baby, and hosted by 2 of their employees, Chris and Kevin. It's safe to say the DIY Musician podcast sits comfortably in the top 10. And even though it's presented by CD Baby, it's not one of those like cringy, salesy type of podcasts that have a not so hidden agenda of pushing you onto their services or the courses that they offer. But they definitely do a really good job at sharing information that every artist needs to know. They also host an event every year called the DIY Musician Conference, where they not only get experts to come in and speak, but they've also been known to have people that work directly for platforms like Instagram and TikTok to come out and speak as well. The conference does cost some money, and I've never been myself, so I can't really speak on it too much, but thankfully they're generous enough to record some of these special panels and they upload them as podcast episodes. Similar to South by Southwest, artists from all over come out and gain as much valuable information as they can, as well as taking the opportunity to network with other musicians. Number 7 on the list, and easily one of my personal favorites, is The God Show, hosted by none other than the culture referee himself, Mr. Ray Daniels. Now, I'm not gassing bro up when I say that he probably has one of the most genius and creative minds when it comes to anything regarding the music industry. Not many people on this list would I consider myself a fan of, but he is most definitely one of them. With a new special guest on each episode, their weekly podcasts are the perfect way to get an inside look on how people behind the scenes in the industry think and operate. I'm not about to name drop any of the guests, but I will say that they've done an amazing job at getting some real heavyweights on the show. The God Show is spelled G-A-U-D-S because it stands for the GOATs and Underdogs, highlighting the GOATs and underdogs of the industry. I know they're available on both YouTube and also on platforms like Spotify if you want to hear it as a podcast, but I personally prefer to watch them on YouTube just because they really do be wilding on that show, man. But I have noticed that for some reason they drop their podcast first, and then usually a couple days later the YouTube video will come. Either way, make sure you tune into The God Show, which is hands down one of the most entertaining on the list. Moving on to number 6, we have The New Music Business with Ari Herstand, which is a podcast that has a variety of guests that have all types of backgrounds in the music industry. With a Webby Award for Best Music Podcast and rated as the #1 music industry podcast by Spotify itself, The New Music Business would be my #1 recommendation if you want to learn more about the music business and you want a better understanding of how the industry works. Now, if the name Ari Herstand doesn't sound familiar, he's the best-selling author of the book How to Make It in the New Music Business, which has recently been updated to its 3rd edition. And I know I'm here to talk about his podcast, but his book has to be the most enlightening book I have ever read for music artists. As an independent artist himself, Ari uses his podcast to ask his guests questions from our perspective. This was another podcast that I was late to the party for, but I was happy to music nerd out and listen to every single episode. Like all the other podcasts on this list, The New Music Business is available on platforms like Spotify, so make sure you check it out. Every episode is full of gems that no artist should miss. But how y'all feeling? We halfway through the list, and honestly, between those first 5, I think I could stop the video right here and you still would have got some value out of it.
Ugh, it's just f***ing embarrassing, Bradley. I mean, seriously.
I told you not to call me that. My name is Vortex.
Who tells people they're a f***ing rapper when they don't even release any f***ing music?
I'm finna pop off, man. I'm gonna
Where's
be
your
famous,
music
believe
then?
that.
Give me one song by the almighty Vortex that I can actually show people so I don't feel
Whatever.
like such a f***ing loser when I say my boyfriend's
Whatever.
a f***ing rapper.
Yeah.
Always making a fool of yourself
This girl
out in
really
public.
tried to hurt my feelings.
See, this is exactly what I'm talking
Tell them
about.
bring us 2 checks. I won't pay for what you getting.
Wow,
Yeah.
seriously?
DistroKid, the best way to get your music on all streaming platforms for only $40 a year. Enjoy 7% off on your first year by clicking our VIP referral link down in the description and get verified on Spotify and become the artist that you claim to be.
Girl, I'm so happy you finally broke up with that loser. You deserve so much better. What? What happened?
Oh my god, you gotta be kidding me.
If you haven't been able to tell, each podcast or YouTube channel on the list brings a different perspective than the others. Some of them focus more on marketing. Some of them focus more on the music business. Some of them have more expertise in running ads, and they make most of their content about that. What I like to do is take pieces of each of them and consider all of the information when it comes time to strategize for my own career. But getting back to it, number 5 on the list is probably my favorite when it comes time to think of new pieces of content that I need to create. Big shout out to Damien Keys, from content ideas to tips and tricks on how to make your content better. His channel is a must watch for any artist on any level. Of course, he talks about a lot more than just content creation, but for me personally, that's what I get the most value from. He has a few videos out that prove how oftentimes artists overthink their content way too much. He'll find different artists in his area and then he'll ask to shoot some content for him. He shoots beautiful videos for him and typically creates a whole month's worth of TikToks, Reels, and YouTube shorts that they can use to bring in new fans. But here's the best part. He shoots it all in under an hour. I want you to imagine that. A whole month of TikToks, Reels, and YouTube Shorts in just 1 hour. I don't know about y'all, but before taking his advice, I was likely to spend an entire hour on just one single video. But then he's got examples of him shooting one in less than 30 seconds. So let's watch it.
Everyone's overthinking their social media content. I'm with Jordan, and we're going to make one piece of content in literally less than 30 seconds.
Absolutely no pressure on me. The timer starts now. 30 seconds, go.
A quiet morning in a big empty house. I am lying here waiting for a reason to get up. Thoughts are slowly melting in this lonely atmosphere. 'Cause you know that.
Now, obviously, as far as timing goes, you can't really beat that, but I hope you notice how much of a difference that some light color correction could do for a video. I said it once and I'm gonna say it again, man. Big shout out to Damien Keys. You know he in the top 5 for a reason. Now, number 4 surprised me a little bit as I was putting this list together, only because I just now found this podcast not too long ago. And yet, they still quickly became one of my all-time personal favorites. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. They describe it on YouTube as no holds barred music business talk. But what really sets them apart is how each of the 3 hosts have a different background in the industry. Between a music producer, a manager, and a former record label owner, Damien, Aaron, and DJ Payne 1 give a unique perspective on every single topic that they cover. One of the things that I appreciate most about the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast is how their unfiltered conversations give us a real look behind the curtain. It's easy to get stuck in our ways as an artist where we only tend to look at things from our own perspectives, which is something that usually just breeds more false entitlement, and that just makes us all look bad. I hope y'all ready though, because we just made it to the top 3 podcasts and YouTube channels that every artist should be tapped into. I told you how everybody on this list specializes in their own type of thing, and when it comes to running digital ads, ain't nobody got the juice like the Creative Juice podcast. Please don't make the same mistake I did by only listening to them on Spotify. For the longest, I thought that they only posted podcast episodes, but come to find out, they drop videos strictly for YouTube all the time. I'm not too sure on why, but for some of the people on the list, I prefer to just listen to, and for others, I prefer to watch their videos. Regardless on how you consume their content, Creative Juice is easily one of the most informative podcasts for music artists today. I mean, I can't tell you how blessed I feel for having access to so many free resources. I mean, do you know how long information like this was kept for music artists? And now we just be getting it for free. Blessed, man. I'm telling you, we are blessed. But let's keep on pushing, because this next channel has me looking forward to their episodes every single week. We have The Cheat Code, which is probably the most fitting name that they could have came up with, because it really do feel like you playing with a cheat code when you put their advice into practice. Similar to the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast, The Cheat Code has 3 hosts that come from different backgrounds in the industry. This includes Kingpin, who's a DJ that knows his way around some street marketing. They got Ferrari, who's also a DJ that's broken many records on the radio. And finally, they have the amazing Miss Wendy Day. Full disclosure, Wendy Day is another person on the list that I consider myself a true fan of. I mean, no cap, if I saw her for real, I'd probably be a little bit starstruck. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of everyone's work on this list, but between Ray Daniels, Wendy Day, and the 2 people that made number 1 on the list, it's just, I don't know, man. It's not just the gems that they be giving, because everyone that I've named be dropping gems. I think it's something about the way that their minds work, and to have the privilege to see that, to get real actionable advice and insights from them on what it takes to get an artist to where they want to be. It's just, like I said, man, I'm a fan. And I think that's really important for artists to have. Yeah, with a little bit of networking, you could find plenty of people in your city that make music, no matter where you're from. But I was always tapped into the local artists in my city. Once you consistently make yourself a part of the community, you quickly find yourself running into the same people over and over. But to be real, man, I had to fall back. I kept getting frustrated because nobody was ever on my level. And I'm not talking about talent. That was actually one of the most frustrating parts. These were super talented artists. Some of them were way more talented than me, but nobody was ever on my level when it came to the work. Nobody wanted to do all the other things that it takes to be successful. And it's not like I was just making this up. I was only relaying the information that I was getting from the people like the ones on this list. But my point in saying all of this is, it could be a lonely road sometimes, And that's why I say it's so important to find resources like these, because collectively, they all kind of feel like my own personal counsel, if that makes sense. So of course, I'm gonna have to put The Cheat Code at number 2 on the list. I know they're available on Spotify, but they're one of the ones that I prefer to go to YouTube and actually watch their video. They cover a variety of important topics, but like I said, man, you just gonna have to tap in and see what I'm talking about for yourself, cause there's not a single episode where they don't drop multiple gems. We finally made it to #1 on the list of best podcasts and YouTube channels for independent artists. Hold on to your seats, I'm sure the suspense is killing you. Now this one by far was the easiest one to rank and also the first one that I put on the list. All the other ones, I'll be real, they was a lot more difficult to put into an order. But without a doubt, the #1 YouTube channel / podcast that every artist should be watching is the No Labels Necessary podcast with Sean and Corey. They're definitely on like Spotify and Apple Music, anywhere you find podcasts, but you can also find them on the Brand Man Network YouTube channel. I personally prefer to watch this one on YouTube, being a long-time subscriber to the channel myself. I'm talking about all the way back to when Sean used to always say "pow" at the top of every video, man. And yeah, they do have your typical YouTube formatted videos that are really informative on their own. But what I want to focus on is their podcast, No Labels Necessary, where they drop a new episode every single Tuesday and Thursday. They ain't even miss Thanksgiving, bruh. But when I tell you I get excited for these episodes, like they for real a TV show, and then they drop them early too, I ain't even gonna lie to you, man. I be waking up like a kid on Christmas, man. They really make you feel like you a fly on the wall, like you get to hear a genuine conversation between two music marketing goats. And as we've gotten further and further up this list, it kind of feels like I'm just fanning out on these people, and I mean, you know, I kind of am. But that's what happens when you obsessively think about what needs to be done in your music career. When you literally go to sleep and wake up every single day thinking about music. Not just the creation process, but everything. When you're a true student of your craft, I feel like it's only natural to grow a sense of genuine appreciation for people like Sean and Corey. Now, nobody on this list knows me from a hole in the wall. So this ain't no promo or sponsorship thing, man. I just truly believe that everyone I've mentioned has helped me take the necessary steps forward in my music career. But don't take my word for it. Go and check them out. Be the judge for yourself. Before we close out, I want to highlight some honorable mentions. Even though they didn't make it into the top 10, they definitely deserve a shout out because I watch or listen to all of these as well. In no particular order, up first we have Smart Rapper, which is a channel that you can find on YouTube. Next we have Burstimo, I think is how you say it, but you can find them on YouTube as well. I know they put podcast episodes out on Spotify, but they definitely a lot more active on YouTube. But next we have Independent, which is found on both YouTube and Spotify. Then we have the Best Advice Podcast, which is a podcast presented by Spotify for artists. And finally, we have the Music Biz Weekly Podcast that could be found on Spotify as well. So there you have it. There's 5 more for you as a little bonus. If you're still watching this video, I'm assuming that you recognize the importance of constantly learning. Having the right people pointing you in the right direction can be the difference between you making this a career or this just being a hobby. But that's all I got for y'all, man. Shout out one more time to everybody that I mentioned in the video. To all my fellow indies out there, y'all keep pushing cause we starting to gain some leverage.
Watch me really put myself on, cause I can't settle for average. I made it a habit of doing what they couldn't get done.
Wait, you still here? You must not know a video to watch next or something, huh? Alright, man. I got you, bro, but you gonna have to get up out of my studio, cause what the
got me showing up. You can keep your keeper behind the gate if they won't let me in. Yeah. We balancing the scales now, and we got them scared. Yeah. We been gaining leverage. What I need a handout for? Watch me really put myself on. In the leverage drop gems, you get all the free game. Yeah, yeah. We got plenty more.